Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which indications or warnings about events to come are dropped or planted. If you were to ask anime fans about which series has the best foreshadowing, their answer is going to be Attack on Titans. Probably. But is it actually the case? In this video, I'll be making a brief comparison between AOT and two other animes that in my opinion have a similar level of foreshadowing, if not even better. First and foremost, we have Attack on Titans. Attack on Titan's first episode literally spoils both Eren's mom and Hannah's death in a brief dream that Eren sees while laying under a tree. And as we know later that the future Eren manipulated his younger self by killing his own mom in front of his eyes so his plans can succeed in the future. Which means that the dream that the younger Eren saw was essentially his older self manipulating him and showing him the bleak future awaiting him. And also the title of that episode was named To You 2000 Years Later, which is ridiculous to say the least, but it doesn't stop at this. Attack on Titan's most famous plot twists were also foreshadowed quite a lot from the very first chapters. As you can see, Eren Reiner wounds producing steam multiple times, which foreshadowed the fact that they were Titan shifters. Annie, being the female Titan, was also hinted when she caught Armin while she was in her Titan form and spared him because she recognized his face. Annie, Reiner, and Bertold, being warriors, was also foreshadowed quite a lot in the first season, as looking in retrospect, all of their interactions can be deemed suspicious, like the reaction when Erwin mentioned the secret basement for the first time.
彼の成果があるシガンシナクの地下室には彼も知らない巨人の謎があるとされている。その地下室にたどり着きさえすれば、我々はこの100年にわたる巨人の支配から脱却できる手がかりをつかめるだろう。地下室だと。
When they thought Eren was eaten at Trost, we all thought they were worried about their comrade. Turns out they wanted him alive, so the power of the Founding Titan is not transferred to another random Eldian, in which prolongs their mission. In the first OVA that follows the first season, which is canon by the way, one of the scouts was confronted by an abnormal Titan that can talk. The Titan uttered some words that neither we or her could understand at that time. The words were Ymir's people and Ymir, which hints to a relation between the Titans and the unknown character named Ymir, aka Ymir the Founder, which is supposed to be a huge plot twist that is going to be revealed in later seasons. This also explains why was Hanji and Levi shocked upon hearing the name Ymir once again.
Kinda cute.
The girl who's always hanging around Ymir. Excuse me?
In the second season, Eren punches the Titan that ate his mother and proceeds to unintentionally activate the coordinate, which foreshadows both Eren carrying the Founding Titan powers and that the Titan he punched is carrying royal blood. Hopping swiftly onto our second contender, Bleach. Starting with one of the most impressive foreshadows in Bleach, Ichigo's true Zanpakuto spirit and his Quincy roots. In chapter 63, Old Man Zangetsu tries telling Ichigo his real name, but it is muted in anime and blacked by ink in the manga. At that time, Yuha, aka Old Man Zangetsu, was still under Ichibi's name erasing ability, and did not fully regain his power, and that's why he couldn't tell Ichigo his real name. In episode 19, when Ichigo touches his Zanpakuto, Old Man Zangetsu starts glowing in white, and at that time he had white absorbed inside of him, and that was the reason why it started glowing, since this was the first time Ichigo interacted with his sword. Every time Old Man Zangetsu tried teaching Ichigo a new technique, he asked White for help. In chapter 220, Ichigo is training with White, and White explicitly tells Ichigo that he is Zangetsu. Unfortunately, we did not believe him. And to be honest, you cannot blame us. What did bro think is gonna happen after them evil ass speeches? In chapter 396, after Aizen revealed that he planned Ichigo's whole life, he tells Ichigo that he knew about him before he was even born because he's a human, and Ichigo couldn't hear the rest of the sentence because they got interrupted by Ishin. With that being said though, this part foreshadows Ichigo carrying another power that he didn't know about, hence his Quincy powers. Another great foreshadow that is usually missed happens in episode 110 when Ichigo is confronted by Zenosuke Kuromadani. Zenosuke asks Ichigo about his identity, where Ichigo identifies himself as a substitute Soul Reaper and shows Zenosuke his so-called combat pass. Zenosuke bursts out laughing and says that he never heard of such thing. Turns out it wasn't a comedic relief scene. Zenosuke actually didn't know what a combat pass is, as it doesn't exist. Therefore, this scene foreshadows the fact that the Soul Society used the so-called combat pass to spy on Ichigo so they can kill him alongside Ginjo when he makes his move. In episode 36, Yachiro landed on Ichigo's shoulders, but he could not feel her presence and deemed her as a no-ordinary Soul Reaper. Also following his fight against Grimmy, a brief flashback between Zaraki and Yachiro is brought again, showing Yachiro touching the sword after Zaraki asks for her name, which foreshadows Yachiro being Zaraki's Zanpakuto spirit and as a regular Soul Reaper. Both Yumichika and Shinji Zanpakuto's ability were foreshadowed before they were shown on screen, as in episode 56, Hisagi states Yumichika's Bankai ability after getting defeated by him. At that time, we never knew he had a Bankai to begin with. And in episode 110, Shinji is introduced as a high schooler. He then starts explaining his name after he wrote it upside down on the board, with the reasoning that he's good at doing things in reverse, which hints both his Shikai and Bankai abilities. When Uryu was first introduced, Kobo made sure to call him Quincy's last survivor. He then adds the detail about the Quincy's extermination 200 years ago, and then proceeds to show his father, who's also a Quincy. So what did he mean by Quincy's last survivor when there are still some Quincy's alive? As it turns out, this foreshadowed the Ausvalen since it killed all the impure Quincy's except for Uryu, making him the last Ausvalen survivor, not in general. Another hint to the Ausvalen, which might be a copium, but remember when Old Man Zangetsu said he hates the rain? Maybe it was because he knew how brutal the Ausvalen was considering he is part of Yuha's soul, and that's why he feared being rained on when Ichigo gets sad. And lastly, we have
The One Piece!
Starting in the very first chapter of One Piece after Luffy ate the rubber fruit, the shopkeeper tells Luffy that he seems to be in a good mood today, just for Luffy to reply that he became even happier after eating this fruit, which foreshadows Luffy's devil fruit true nature and him being the Joy Boy. In Logtown arc, when Luffy was on the execution platform, you can see a guy wearing Sabo's attire, and it's safe to assume that this was in fact Sabo because he is the second in command of the Revolutionary Army and Dragon was already there. What makes this really impressive is that a lot of fans accuse Oda of retconning Sabo and that he was introduced later for plot convenience after killing Ace. There was that one moment in Thriller Park where Lola tells the Straw Hats about her mother, which is seemingly a really strong pirate in the New World. As it turns out, Lola is Big Mom's daughter, which might not be all that impressive, but I was actually a bit shocked when I found out. In episode 888, Jewelry Bonnie sees Koma and gets emotional because of the condition he was in, which foreshadows the relation and the tragic path that both Koma and Bonnie share together that are revealed in later chapters in the manga. Now coming to one of One Piece's biggest plot twists, Kanjuro's betrayal. This one specifically was foreshadowed a lot. Jack knew the way to Zou and even knew that Raizo was there. This hints to the fact that there was a traitor among them, which was obviously not one of the Minks. Kanjuro's confinement was also a really big hint to his suspicious activities, because he had the ability to escape but chose not to. And also the Flamingo did not give a single fuck about him being captured by Luffy's alliance. Kanjuro was also right-handed, but he drew using his left hand, resulting in bad drawings to hide his true drawing abilities. In Wano, when the Straw Hats were at the bathhouse, he asked Robin about what information she gathered from Orochi, which was a lot. He was shocked, and minutes later Hawkins and Drake raided the bathhouse, and for some reason they knew that the Straw Hats were there. I also remember all the moments he sabotaged his team as a gag, but turns out it was actually intended. And now you tell me, which one do you think had better foreshadowing overall, including the stuff that I haven't mentioned?